Connected. She's trying to zoom in.
Recording in progress.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and get started and call the meeting to order. So I had Lillian go ahead and start the recording, so we're live streaming. I'd like to thank everybody for taking time out of your day to come to this meeting. We've got a couple of guests here today. I'm going to start out the meeting with Congressman Mark Molinaro, who's our new representative in the our congressional district, and I'm very optimistic about the future here. And I'd like to turn it over to Mark to say a couple of things. Has everybody met Mark?
Not everybody.
Okay, why don't we run around the table and just introduce yourselves and.
Wade Oliver.
Drew Chester, Beaver Mountain Log Homes. Colin Chester, Beaver Mountain Log Homes.
Glenn Neal, Delaware County Economic Development.
Sure.
Bruce Stop.
That works.
Andy Mattiak, Mayor of the Village of City and owner of BB Bolton.
That's right.
Sean Penshaw, Delaware County Economic.
There with me.
And Alex Lord, I'm a field representative for the congressman and happy to be of service if needed.
Michael Drevich, co-founder of Raven Genetics.
And Joanne Petrovich, other co-founder.
Scott White, Bank of Cooper's Town.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was with you. You were in a suit.
Well, that's why I own a beef and hay farm in Andes, and Andes town supervisor and also chair of the watershed egg company.
Oh, good. Well, let's come out and visit. I'd like to sit down. Thanks.
Joe Seta, supervisor, town hall.
Yeah, I'm well familiar with you.
This is Lillian Brown. She runs the equipment. You met her earlier. Okay.
Who's on the screen there?
Yep. Mike. Mike O'Brien, he's one of our board members. He's in Hancock.
Okay, good.
He's got the easy chair.
Yeah, for sure.
Very relaxed.
Okay, well, go ahead. Mark, why don't you bring us up to date on what's going on in Washington and where all our money's going?
Well, sit back. That could take a while. What I thought I'd do is just give a little bit of my background, where we are now, and then if you have some questions, and then I can stay a little bit, but I don't want to interfere on the rest of your business. I know you've got some activity. First, I will offer. I spent 12 years as a county executive prior to coming to this position. Which I admit to you is truly an honor. I mean, I don't take it anything less. It is an enormous honor to represent 750,000 people across the 19th congressional district, 11 counties, from Massachusetts to Ithaca. It's actually one of the largest in the state. Very diverse. I was talking about this before. Diverse in topography, geography, not so much in demography. From the Hudson Valley region through the Catskills, Southern Tier, up to Central New York, and each of those regions have very unique needs and concerns, but we share a lot, and so it's an honor to represent these 11 counties. But for the 12 years prior to serving, for the 12 years prior to serving here. As a county executive, I had to oversee our industrial development agency. In fact, work to develop our economic development plan, partner with our Chamber of Commerce. I've seen both, just to stay focused on IDA for a moment, I've seen both the benefits and the work that IDAs can do. I also know that the state, in particular state legislature, continues to put pressure on IDAs. And quite frankly, I think there are members of the state legislature that would like to eliminate local IDAs. I think it's a bad idea. It's one of the last tools, and you frankly used to have many more tools than you have today. It's one of the last tools that local communities can use to help guide economic development within your municipal boundaries. Everything else now is at the state or federal level. And as I said, you had Empire zones and Excelsior zones and business development zones where you could use many more tools than you have now. We used them effectively to help rebound after a massive loss of jobs. IBM left the Hudson Valley, 75,000 jobs basically overnight. We had to rebuild, and so use those tools to invest in infrastructure, to partner with job creators, and try to rebuild rebuild our economy. By the way, relying on supporting agriculture, reinvesting in agriculture and tourism. and then manufacturing. Anyway, I know the work that you do. I want to be helpful to you. Prior to that, I was a member of the state legislature, 6 years in the state assembly. And for 12 years served as a village mayor. I joke with my children, although it does seem a bit morbid, that when I die, the only thing I want on my tombstone is he was a good dad and mayor. As mayors, like supervisors, you learn very quickly that you don't have time to debate why the roof's leaking. You just fix the roof. And that interaction at the local level, when you make a decision, it has real impact on real people and you see it. And so you can't hide from your neighbors. You don't want to hide from your neighbors. Members of Congress, I joke, could no sooner spend 6 months as a village mayor, let alone 12 years, because it's intense for all the right reasons. And I take all those lessons with me now. I was asked to serve on the 2 committees, or 3 committees that I wanted to serve on. The House Agriculture Committee, the House Transportation Infrastructure Committee, and the House Small Business Committee. For agriculture, you likely know America's agriculture policy is all wrapped up in one piece of legislation. Mostly it's the Farm Bill. It's considered and reauthorized every 4 years. This is that year. I wanted to serve on the committee for this, for that very reason. We'll be rewriting and hopefully enhancing America's ag policy. And for those of us who came in from parts of communities like ours, and by the way, the new majority looks like this district. There aren't new majority members in places that aren't smaller, more rural, suburban communities. And so when we're rewriting that farm bill, upstate farms like the ones I represent will have a much louder voice than we've had in the past. And because we're almost always at a competitive disadvantage, want to work very effectively as best we can to use the farm bill to assist opening up markets, providing relief and support to upstate farmers. Transportation Infrastructure Committee, that's pretty self-explanatory. But while I wasn't in the House when they adopted it, the Infrastructure and Jobs Act is nearly $2 trillion worth of federal funding. It's the largest investment that we've ever seen. And by the way, the first infrastructure investment since 2008 of note. This committee is going to oversee its distribution, going to make sure the dollars get to the places we said they're supposed to get to, and to some degree push back on states like New York, who often redirect those dollars to major metropolitan areas and not necessarily upstate and more rural communities. For me, that means ensuring that we're investing in highways, roads, and bridges, rail, water, sewer, high-speed internet, and cell service, which can also be a tool for high-speed internet, and we don't often use it as effectively as we can. And so I want to know those things that you face. I want to know those challenges. I want you to ask me those questions so that we can effectively get dollars in investment here. Small Business Committee is what it is. We oversee the small business, the SBA, but also have jurisdiction over those regulations that affect smaller businesses. Want to be helpful in making life a little bit easier for small businesses, which I have always believed in, and still know are the backbone of our economy. 70% of new jobs are created by existing small businesses. 70% of America's new jobs are created by existing small businesses. I've been asked to chair the subcommittee on innovation, entrepreneurialism, and workforce development, which is a lot of stuff to work on. But for upstate New York, access to labor and workforce, supporting those entrepreneurial innovators, critically important. So hopefully you can get the committee to pay attention to the work that we do. Lastly, most importantly, I truly don't care what political party you are. I don't even need to know. I don't care who you voted for. I don't need to know. Our job is to try to be helpful. That's it. It's what I've done my whole life. It's the way I treat public service. We're never going to agree on everything. I don't even agree. My wife and I don't agree on everything. There'll be times where I vote for something. You say, what the heck did you do that for? I would like to know that because I think I'm reflecting your interest, but maybe you don't think I am. I need to know that. There's an issue that's going to arise. The IDA has a new challenge. A business wants to get up off the ground, needs access banking. Tell us that, reach out to us. Let us know that you're considering going before the planning board. Tell us that you don't have the water and sewer necessary to support a particular or cell service. I know. I try. Sadly for you, I have to drive through. I drive through your town more than most others in this district, just so you know. And I know the lack of cell service quite well. Yes. Please get. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. A company. Let's work on it. Well, let's work on it. But I need to know these things so we can be responsive to you, and I want to. I get 2 guaranteed years of this job, and already 2 months are gone. And so to the extent that I can be an effective advocate for you, I want to do that. So I'm going to leave it there. Reach out to us. We have 2 main offices, one in Binghamton, one in Catskill. We're partnering in every county to have a shared office somewhere. In Delaware, I think we're Hancock with Senator Oberacker. We're in other places, but and Alex, who's one of our field representatives, wants to be at stuff. In fact, he has said to me, the only thing, the best part of this job is not being anywhere near his family. And so you have events going on, you have meetings going on, tell us. We want to be, and with that, I'll stop. If there are some questions, I'll be happy to take them. How's that?
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to mention to you, Glenn and I recently attended a meeting at Don's Dairy Supply in South Portray. And we talked with them about they're building self-contained dairy processing plants inside cargo containers.
Yeah.
And they're being sold all over the country, and they're having trouble with ag and markets in New York State of getting them approved here.
Okay.
So we met with Senator Oberacker and Chris Hague and the people from Don's Dairy to talk about that. One of the things that we talked about was doing a real dairy festival this summer at Don's Dairy in South Portray. And that's moving. We're putting the funding together right now. We're going to get everything up and running. But we're going to have a legislative day connected to that.
Okay.
And we're going to bring in as many of the state legislative representatives as we can to try and convince them, along with some of the ag and market people, so they can see what these containers are.
Okay. Can you be sure to connect us?
We'd love to have your office participate.
Yeah. Well, if we could also do some outreach to ag and markets.
Yep.
I know Commissioner Ball pretty well.
That would be great.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
No one has any questions for me. This is the safest ground. Cell service. I know that there's a couple cannabis projects going on. So I'll at least say that we're trying to move on the safe banking initiative to try to open up access to financial institutions. You probably appreciate that as well. Yeah. And so the bill hasn't been reintroduced yet. I support it in its old version. I have to read it. I have this problem. I like to read stuff before I agree to it. I'd like to see it in its new version. I don't think much is changing. It got very close to being adopted in the omnibus bill that came at the end of the year. The Senate didn't want to take that incremental step because they would rather just legalize nationwide. I don't think that's going to happen. And so the hope is we're going to be able to move the banking bill forward. There is opposition, there's opposition even, within our state now that's legalized. But I will offer, from my perspective, the question of whether or not adult use of cannabis should be legal is over. That decision was made. And so opinions on the matter don't matter to me. It's legal. And so the question is, can we advance access to make sure New York can get ahead of the curve, not behind it. This could be the one industry in a very long time that New York will be ahead of the curve, unless we continue to wait. And if we continue to wait, other states will legalize, and then we'll be competing against massive farms in other parts of the country, and that's going to put us at a competitive disadvantage and make it difficult for smaller. I could call you smaller, but smaller farms and producers. And so we're trying to move that as effectively as we can. So.
Labor continues to be an issue, and specifically seasonal labor.
Yeah.
And as you had said in, I guess it was this morning's Daily Star, labor on the farm and New York State's issues there.
Yeah.
But anything to do with H2
H2 and HOA. Yeah.
Increasing those numbers, whether the plants that aren't able to run at full capacity because they don't have labor.
Yeah.
Or any of the other businesses that I deal with just don't have enough labor.
Yeah. So the three things that when I meet with any employer who's talking to us about anything anywhere, We talk about trying to expand visa access and some sustainability and consistency to her, and you know this because she made the case. Congresswoman Stefanik is very much focused on this. She recognizes the value. I say that because in the majority, obviously, she carries a lot of weight. And so we're trying and we know the value. Second, access to quality, affordable daycare is a massive obstacle to getting, in particular, women into or back into the workforce. And so there needs to be a focus. There are other issues like transportation, but daycare, in particular, affordable access to daycare is a massive obstacle. And so I encourage larger employers like, for instance, Micron coming to Onondaga County to make the kind of investment that necessary to partner to expand daycare access, because you're just keeping a whole segment of the population out of work if they want to. And then last, we're for a specific population, trying to come up with rules to make it easier for those with developmental and intellectual and physical disabilities to work. So there's greater latitude and flexibility for employers. So you don't have to necessarily meet every one of those regulations that you would have to, because you might have an individual who can conduct a portion of the work, not all of the work. And so creating a little bit of flexibility there would also open up. And then long term, I support vocational training, agriculture training in K-12. Kids need to graduate from school being critical thinkers. They need to have a basic understanding of the core curriculum that we have always had, and they need to be encouraged to do the job they want to do. And education outcomes should meet economic needs. And we're educating kids to go to other states to work because we're not educating for the jobs we have, and we're discounting, I think, horribly, those who want to be in vocational, applied sciences, and life science occupations. We're saying that they're of less value. You shouldn't even consider it, and that's a problem. So that's long term, but we have to reinvest there too, in my view. Good.
Anybody else?
Just
Yeah.
comments on renewable energy and potential impacts. We're seeing that in our county, obviously, and elsewhere.
Yeah.
I guess there's two sides to the equation, but can you just talk about anything that's happening at the federal level?
So we're going to continue to incentivize, and there's general support for incentivizing transitioning to renewables. That includes obviously wind and solar, but also for those of us in the majority of the House, that also includes hydro and nuclear. And all of that has to be on the table. So we just don't think you can get from here to there as quickly as, let's say, the state of New York thinks you can get there, which is what you're dealing with. And the here to there conversation is really important. It's like saying, I would like to, I don't know, cross a river without building the bridge. And so we're trying to say to the state, you can't push. So the state has its standard, right? Its expectation. We believe in it. We want to get from here to there. We just think you need to both make sure the investments happening, infrastructure dollars, to upgrade to electric grids, make sure that they're hardened to protect from environmental impacts, storms, whatever, and that there's the dollars there. And so we're going to continue to focus on getting those infrastructure dollars to that kind of technology. I would ask, and we are asking the state to just set the goal, but pump the brakes, although don't pump the brakes anymore, but you know what I mean? It would be helpful if state legislators understood that. And that's a problem. The other issue that we have, and my observation, and you tell me if it's yours as well, the state's siting capacity, and I mean, I know obviously it's local issues, but the state's rules on siting are problematic. The state, should have some involvement, but when you gobble up quality soil for solar panels, it means you can't produce a product anymore where you once did. And what they see is that farming has scaled back. And so what were once fertile lands used for farming aren't currently. And they say, well, see, it's not being used for farming, so let's put solar panels there. When what we ought to be saying is that land needs to be for farming. You want other spots for solar? I'm with you. I'm happy to. And by the way, I would even say to my local officials, if the state has to say to you, listen, we're going to have to push a little bit on those parts in your communities where it makes sense, but you don't have it zoned ready, we might have to have that conversation. But the fact that because of state policy, farming has contracted, They're taking advantage of that and saying to the farmer, well, the way out is just to do this. That isn't the way out. For the first time in American history, 10 years ago, we stopped producing enough food to feed our people. And upstate New York needs agriculture. And every day there's a new regulation. So those are my observations, and I'm communicating them as best we can. Just yesterday, the FDA said, by the way, that you could call soy and oat milk.
Yeah, so-
Now, when I said that that's ridiculous, I will say that some of my friends, and I use that term loosely, said, don't you have something else to do? And meaning, like, is that really what's important? Yes, because upstate dairy is competing against global producers and now milk producers, and now will be competing against global soy and oat producers. And I don't want to have to get into the definition of what is milk. It ain't nuts, I can tell you that. It isn't nuts, as my English teacher would prefer I say, but every one of these is one more chipping away at an industry that, quite frankly, New York needs, America needs, and we can be very aggressive and competitive with. So that's, those are the things I can.
Thank you. You touched on.
Everything.
Ores was the piece that I was,
Yeah.
renewable energy siting is a challenge, I think, going forward.
Yeah, and so we
we're
talked
all
about this
gonna do
earlier. Let me also say the goal of building out electric vehicles and recharging stations, really important. The state has yet to finish its plan for development, and it's like one of the last states in the country to have an effective plan. And so you need to get the blueprints for the bridge, and then build the bridge before you cross the river.
And we have a unique situation here in Delaware County where 53% of the land mass in Delaware County is in the New York City watershed
Sure.
and off limits for commercial development.
Yeah.
So we're already being penalized by government
Right.
and or by an outside government.
Yeah.
Why, if the land is just sitting there forever wild that they've acquired, why not force them to develop that for solar panels?
Well, I said to the chamber, and I'd offer this to all of you as community leaders, the new commissioner of the New York City DEP wants to know what you want him to know, which is new to me. I mean, that's not happened in a while, like him or not. My goal would be to get him to Delaware County.
Good.
And let him listen. And you should air all of your grievances. And anything supportive you might want to say.
Great.
They won't be able to obviously address all of them, but they should know how they're seen as a neighbor in the community. I
Mhm.
think that's important. Yeah.
I just have a quick question. I know we're in very beginning stages with cannabis.
Yeah.
But do you see this industry as being a potential contributor financially?
Yeah.
To all of what you're speaking about?
The short answer is yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And again, like I said, right, there are those who didn't want it legalized. That issue is done.
Right.
And so making it a profitable partner in an agriculture industry, very important. And we discussed earlier, obviously the concern federally is how do we ensure cannabis is part of, in essence, defined agriculture in America? And that's going to be the debate that we have to engage in. But I will tell you, because my answers are much longer than your questions, there are those who are opposed to that for philosophical reasons. They don't think legalization makes sense. I can respect that. That's their view. But then there are those who are opposed simply for parochial reasons. They don't want states like New York to get ahead of them. And so until they think legislatively they can get it done in their state, they want to block states like New York, Massachusetts, California, Colorado, from advancing in the industry. And that's problematic for New York farmers, like you farmers. And so we really do want to push on that, because that to me is not an honest opposition.
I've just seen other states like Colorado, for example, so much money gets fueled into schools and infrastructure. I mean, there's been a huge boom there.
Yeah.
From the cannabis industry, of course.
Yeah. It's funny, right? New York, in this case, is likely ahead of most states, but we're woefully behind the ones that, obviously went first. And so the revenue generation isn't as much as they predicted. But if we build out, it can be much more effective. Yeah. So I'm happy to be helpful. And if you have a location or a municipality I've yet to come visit, tell us, we'll come there. I think it's probably best I excuse myself than to sit through your meeting, if that's okay.
Sure.
Anyone else though? On anything else? Okay, good. Thank you. You don't have a card on you? Do you have cards on you?
Whoever
No,
does
I
not give
don't,
me a
sorry.
card yet, if you have one, please give them.
Okay.
Yeah, I go to one.
I want to just make sure we find our way back out. Okay. I'd say I'd call you, but. I know. I know.
Okay.
Like this.
I will admit, I can't tell you the number of times I would say to people, oh, I was in Andy's. I couldn't call you back. I don't know if I was or wasn't, but it was the easy one. It's great.
It works great. Mark, good to see you. Thank you.
Good to
for
see you
coming
too.
in.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you too.
Take
Thank you,
care.
guys. Thank you, everybody.
Yep, see you soon.
You will.
It's not very responsive, so. Thank you.
Crowd standing out here.
There we go. Wow. Got room. See ya. Okay, let's move along to Michael and Joanne Kudravich,
Kudrevich.
and they're going to do a presentation on their proposed project.
Do you want me to? Yeah. Share this. Yeah. Perfect. Hi, I'm Joanne Kudrevich from Ravensview Genetics. We presented in front of most of you last year. So I couldn't believe a whole year happened since then when I was putting this together, and a lot has happened and changed for us in that time. So I wanted to just give you an update. That being said, I don't know what the next slide says if it's. I need to get down to it. You just hit. Yeah. No? Or an enter. Thinking. There we go. Ah, that is not. All right. Okay. Here, you know what? I think this isn't a version that we have ready. Yeah, no, that's all part of it, but it's not the one. You just have to jump to it. Well, I'm sorry, guys. Anyway, I'll go ahead and start by introducing us, and I'll let people speak while I try to fix it. Because what I do have is an update. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, and maybe a video is worth 2,000. So I have a short video. I don't have a long attention span for that kind of stuff, so it's short. But I think it will tell you everything there is to know about what we've been doing since we last spoke. For those of you who don't know me, I come from healthcare industry, from corporate healthcare, building large medical corporate entities, both in the private sector and in the public sector. My last job was for New York Presbyterian Hospital to develop vascular centers for them and their Queens campus when they bought the Flushing Hospital. So my orientation to this is twofold as it applies to this. One is big business and corporate entities and how to build that, because every place that I started at was more of an entrepreneurial endeavor. New York Presbyterian, we want you to set up vascular centers. Other healthcare facilities, we want you to develop a Northeast region or build this practice in the tri-state area. The other is compliance. Because I come from healthcare, as you can well imagine, if you don't know for sure, it's an extremely compliant, especially in New York State. It's one of the most difficult states for the corporate practice of medicine from a compliance perspective. So everything I do, everything we do is from wearing that compliance hat. Cannabis, of course, is another one of those industries that's going to be and is heavily regulated. So you can't get a license unless you've had background checks, right? You cannot have anything negative in your history or in your record that would prohibit you from being able to perform as a good citizen. Another thing that is super important to us that we'll speak about is being a good citizen, meaning giving back to the community. I am from Brooklyn. I'm a born and bred New Yorker. It's all about New York for me. I went to NYU, lived on Long Island, moved up here. We moved up here 17 years ago. I'm familiar with this area because my college friends from NYU moved up here, bought a place in Andes. That was in my acting days. And they opened the DelCo Dance Studio. And so I've been coming up here, I hate saying this because it ages me, but for more than 30 years. And subsequently Reagan owns now the dance studio that she was a student at when they owned it, the Lukeses, Joanna and John Lukes in Andes. And so I feel like I've been integrated into this community for very many years, which is why we chose to move here when we decided we wanted to be among nature. My husband can speak to why that's important to him. But coming from Brooklyn, it was a shift for me. But I also, we had an apartment in the city, and for 8 years I was back and forth, like I said, working in the healthcare industry. So we own a property on the Delaware River. Michael can speak to, our stewardship of that land and that property and how all of the different things that he's done and we've done to protect it, to create ecosystems. Everything from solar, we tried an electric vehicle, now we're getting a hybrid. But also, different programs that he's done to create riparian buffers for the river and things like that. So these are some of the things that are important to the state as we build a cannabis industry, right? Environmental sustainability, building, giving back to the community. We have already employed in our last year, since we saw you last, we did get licensed. And we have employed, at one point, we had about 28 employees, some of them remote, some of all in New York, and then some of them, in the hands-on with the plant touching. And so with our plans for future, which is what we're here to share with you, we anticipate employing more. I also have a position with the Cannabis Association of New York. They're an advocacy group that services everybody in this industry in the state of New York. I was asked to be the chairperson for their cultivation committee. So what that has afforded me is the ability to have communication, clear communication with the Office of Cannabis Management, those who are legislating the rules and regulations in our state. I also have the ability to advocate for the cultivators. Our currently licensed cultivators are made up of New York State hemp farmers who were probably before that dairy farmers and so on and so forth. And so there's been this transition in our communities amongst the farming community to go to see hemp coming on board as an opportunity. And some of them who got in early enough and transitioned their fourth or fifth generation farms to this crop had an opportunity to make some money in the beginning. And then unfortunately, that market tanked a bit. And so the state stepped in when adult use cannabis became legal here, to say, before we allow anybody from any other states or large multi-state operators to come into New York, we're going to give an opportunity to these distressed hemp farmers. And so I have an opportunity to represent those folks through this organization at a state level, and fielding a lot of angst, a lot of concern, a lot of fear, because we're still operating without regulations. The New York State just recently proposed regulations. We've gone through our period of public comment. It's now back in their hands. And so we've been operational, it'll be a year in May, cultivating without regulations, just working off of guidance. We took a lot of action to do things in a way that I anticipated would be the most compliant, the gold standard of what New York State was going to ask. So if has anyone here driven by our farm? We're 5.5 miles outside from here in Delhi. We put an 8-foot fence around our grow because not that the state said we had to.
You're up on the Back River Road.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Just drove by it the other day.
Yeah.
Beautiful facility.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We take great pride in the work that we do. So we put an 8-foot fence up, not because we were required, or even that it was in the guidance, but because we anticipated it's what the state was going to require, and it helped me sleep better at night, truly, with a lot of security. We built a 3,000 square foot head house, a metal building, and there's a lot of security there. I want to say about $60,000 or $70,000 worth of security.
Now, is that a requirement by owner, or you're just doing it?
It's
for
not
your own?
required yet.
Okay.
So a lot of the farmers who couldn't, listen, we raised money for this because we believed we had to reach a certain standard, and it's how we operate.
Okay.
But a lot of people who couldn't afford it or didn't want to take that kind of a risk haven't done those things, and that's okay. We invested in a seed to sale tracking system. That means that, and New York State is adopting one. It's called BioTracks. We invested in that from day one. That means every seed that we purchased and planted is in a tracking system that takes us all the way to the point of sale. That is going to be a requirement, but people are tracking it on sticky notes and spreadsheets right now. We invested the money and the resources into that because we believe it's important from a compliance perspective, of course, and from a safety perspective. There's a lot of educational initiatives that we're engaged with. And one of them is the speaking just about the plant itself. This is plant medicine from our perspective. And if you maintain the whole plant, just like if you maintain a whole food, I come from healthcare, right? So if you eat the whole orange, you get your body assimilates vitamin C very easily. If you extract vitamin C, your body has to work really hard to be able to assimilate that for health. We believe that by maintaining the whole plant profile, our body's endocannabinoid system, which is a system I didn't learn about in nursing school, but which exists. We have receptors in our body to assimilate this plant medicine and use it for health. And so we educate about that and we grow for that purpose, not to get people effed up or super high THC. So they have this, crazy experience. We want people to enjoy the journey for sure, but it has to make sense and it has to be healthful. I'm working with many educational institutions. We've been working with SUNY Morrisville for a few years through their horticulture program. They've been working extensively and in a very deep way with hemp. And so we've been working with them. We've hired some student interns from them. We're donating some seeds to them. Michael's donated some hemp seeds to them for their research. We're going to speak at one of their classes next week, and we're developing some pilot programs to do some research with the students. SUNY Delhi, I taught there for a year in the healthcare administration program. I have a lot of ties and connections. I've always wanted to, get the community and the campus utilizing resources. And so I've been working with them to help develop a cannabis culinary program, since there's a lot of state funding that's going right now to SUNY and CUNY schools for cannabis programs. There's a few who are doing horticulture, but not that many doing culinary. And so I brought the Department of Labor's David Serrano. He is from the Department of Labor's Cannabis Workforce Initiative. He was recruited from out west. He's their director. We've done workshops with him. We've gone out into the community and educated people and invited him to join our troop. I brought him over to SUNY Delhi. He met with the president, the acting president right now, and the dean of the culinary school. He's coming back and he's already allocated state resources for the university to help them build that program and curriculum and things like that. I was at a panel. I was speaking on a cannabis panel at SUNY Delhi last week, and it was put on by the criminal justice department. And I didn't know if it was going to be, they were going to be coming at me or not. But the truth is, it was very supportive. The folks who are in criminal justice want to see this stuff legalized because they would like to have controls over it, right? Like if it's not, right now we have breathalyzers for drunk driving, but there really are not mechanisms for being able to identify if someone's driving while impaired after consuming cannabis. And so we had a really great conversation, and I've invited one of their professors he was a former DA in Delhi, to join our team from an educational perspective, and let's educate the community, not only in Delaware County, not only in New York State, but across the states in terms of safety. Consume safely. There are programs right now that schools are developing to do some kind of breathalyzer so that, because cannabis stays in your system for a while if you smoke. But if there's a breathalyzer that can actually detect whether or not it's in your lungs, then they can probably put a time frame around it, right? So these are things that are important to us. I come from the health perspective, and the idea of consuming this responsibly. We're very pure in our purpose. And so Michael, I'll let him speak to cultivation. I'll see if I can pull this thing up. But we're about that whole plant profile. We're about flower, pre-rolls. We haven't been thinking along the lines of gummies and things like that. To be God's honest truth with you, for one, I mean, the packaging is intense. Somebody in Massachusetts, when we were there, gave me some gummies. I can't open it. I just can't open it, So there's regulations that we'd have to comply with from a safety perspective. I don't love the idea of little kids like seeing something that looks like candy on a shelf. I think to me, it's important that we consume safely and that we educate people so that people are thinking safely. I heard a story from the DA about a father who didn't realize he had his kids coming home to his house that day, and he had marijuana pop brownies. And one of the kids started consuming them and ended up in the ER. Like there are things that I think it's important for us to responsibly know about as we're putting this out into the community, and we're going to be a part of that education as well. So it's really about the whole plant and the health components. It's about the safety piece. We're a women's owned business and we're building a platform for women empowerment in entrepreneurial positions that starts with, there was an 8-year-old at our previous meeting. It starts with that age group. And so we're going to invite young girls into the conversation so that we can build a platform that helps girls, women, all of us who are in industries in particular, such as this one, where we may not be
We'll
very.
wait till they're 21 before we get them.
Right. Right, it'll be a separate platform, certainly not through our website, but an industry where we may be underrepresented. And so those are just some of the things about who we are, what we're doing. I'm gonna stop there, let Michael introduce himself, and I'm gonna see if I can pull
Julian,
this
just a
up.
question.
Yeah.
Hemp cannabis, not interchangeable, right? As far as the products that you can produce from two different,
It
I'll let Michael
depends,
speak
yeah,
to
that
that.
depends, I mean, there is CBD, there are strains of marijuana, we'll say, we'll define hemp and marijuana, even though marijuana is a bit of a derogatory term from history, but just for.
not derogatory from my standpoint.
Well, yeah, but where it actually came from was a derogatory.
Yeah,
thing,
understood.
Mexicans and down, you know, but anyway, there are strains that are developed for, like, you've probably heard of, perhaps you have, there's a strain that's called Charlotte's Web. That was actually developed, that was a marijuana strain that was developed for a young girl out in Colorado, her name was Charlotte, who had seizures. And they developed a very high CBD marijuana strain that was given to her through tinctures. And I'm just throwing numbers out there, not exact numbers, but she was having like 15, 20 seizures a day after being treated with the Charlotte's Web tinctures. She's having 3 or 4 a month. You know, so yes, there
Pretty
is
impressive,
areas, and
right?
that's areas that, you know, people will work with, because the CBD really doesn't, although like my wife has, we've got some CBD honey, she took a quarter teaspoon of it, and was like, I feel really high, you know, and it's like, really, you shouldn't feel that way, but she's got a very sensitive endocannabinoid system.
Yes.
But for the most part, you know, the people will just do this, they'll use the CBD, which is a very large medicinal aspect of it. And that's primarily from the hemp. That's what hemp has got to be.
Okay.
Hemp can't have THC in it. I mean, it's got to be a minuscule amount of THC to be legal. But there are strains that are developed, you know, because sometimes people say the whole plant spectrum is really better. And I know a lot of people, you know, extractors, like the one, for instance, he's in Maine. And he really believes in the whole plant profile. We're having that THC within that product does help with the CBD as well. So there is some overlap
Okay,
in the sense that they, and even with the strains that I'm looking to do is like a 1-to-1, where people want to have that. They want to get a little bit of a relaxation, but they also want to ingest the CBD, you know, so that's where certain strains where your percentage of your THC is maybe 5 or 6%. And the cannabinoids are, you know, around 8 or 10%. You know, so that's even actually going past the 1-to-1. So yes, there is a little bit of overlap.
okay.
Um,
And then is there an overlap in economic viability as well as, or is hemp,
the
hemp?
economic viability of hemp compared to marijuana, it's not even close.
Okay,
You know, I mean, what you could, but there is, I mean, you know, if you look at it from the standpoint of a farmer who's growing corn. And I don't know the price, I don't know how much you could garner from an acre of corn, you know, but you can, you know, even in hemp on its low end, they're still getting, even if they're getting $15, $20 a pound for hemp. I think that's a lot more than they're getting for corn, you know, and so you're talking about how many, okay, we produced, and it was even on a small level, on an acre. Our canopy was 30,000 square feet, which means what we could measure out of our plants, which was in 57,000 square feet of property. And I wanted to walk before I ran. I didn't get really gung ho and pack the plants in, you know, so from that we produced, and this is flower, you know, usable product. This isn't the entire plant. You know, so from a hemp perspective, it would be more. So we produced approximately 1,500 pounds of hemp flower on 30,000 square feet of canopy. So that's not even an acre. So you know, do the math, it would probably come out to about, I guess, probably about 25,000 pounds on an acre. And even at $20 a pound, even at $10 a pound, that's a lot of money for a farmer to get
Real
off of
money,
1
yeah.
acre of property. So yeah, there's
Thank
an
you.
economic balance, but again, when we get to marijuana, that number is way higher.
Yeah.
You know, so anyway, one thing I just want to jump back, I'll springboard off of what Joanne said about also, like, you know, getting things done the proper way. In the legal market is doing it and making sure that the product is pure and clean. And like I'm sure you've all heard of these pop-up dispensaries and these illegal shops that are all over the place, which is the one mistake that New York really made was the way that they rolled things out, which allowed that to happen. They allowed 3 ounces per person prior to, you know, and there was nowhere to get it. but it's all coming in from California places. Well, they've tested the cannabis, and there's E. coli in that, there's heavy metals in it, there's all types of, pathogens. And that's because it's not legal, it's not tested, it doesn't have to be tested, that's coming from the illegal farmers throughout the country. Where we have to be tested, we're strictly tested, as a matter of fact, I'll point out. New York had dropped the testing levels, the guideline testing levels, because it was outdoors microbials, and they're saying like, nobody's gonna pass microbial testing. We actually did, if it was in place, we were squeaky clean with our product. Because of the way that we approach this, it's about a purity perspective. And that leads into the next part of what we're doing, like our business ethos is that we're really, marijuana at this point now has been over hybridized. And it's become a lot of kind of generic, and a lot of the effects of it are pretty much similar across the board, no matter what strain you consume. And that is because of the hybridization. I've been collecting landrace genetics, which is the original genetics, and they're very specific as to what they offer. And they're a full spectrum of what they offer too. And that's where your medicine really lies. So that's part of what we're doing is I'm involved in breeding. And taking those old school landrace genetics and kind of breaking the genetic wheel and starting it over. So we have that medicine that is the most viable for us. And also part of what I want to do is not just do that for our company, but I want to start a seed bank in perpetuity down for other generations. So these landrace genetics, when I'm starting to work with them, I'll breed them out, have that genetic put aside, so it can be used, 10, 15 years from now. Someone says, hey, I want to use this part of the plant. And they can produce a specific type of medicine from that, because as we get more testing, we're going to really know what different cannabinoids, because they haven't scratched the surface of the cannabinoids in the plant at this point in time, because there was never any real legal way to experimentation or research on the plant. Now there is. It was always geared for one specific way that the government wanted to find. They wanted an answer, and they already had a predetermined answer. So that's how any research was done. So now research is opening up. Also, what we're doing is
I'm gonna segue this right now.
okay, sure, go ahead.
And just on that note, though, we are going to be doing a lot of clinical trials. There's with different groups who are either developing infrastructure type things, the folks with the nanobubble technology and the things with agriculture, regenerative agriculture with soil health. That's something with the SUNY Morrisville students we're going to be doing some work with. So the idea of really just seeing if we can do some research. Since we last saw you, some of this writing is an update of all the things that we've done. I'm not going to bore you with that. Like I said, this video, if we just hit go, we'll give you just a little bit of we'll just give you 2 minutes. So that's our home on Back River.
Before the farm starts back.
That was June 5th of last year. That's where we built the 3,000 square foot head house on the other side of our property. This is the fence going in. So that's what we've been doing. Now that, I'm just gonna do this if you don't, if you're okay with that.
I'll move out of your way
Yeah,
if you want to.
so-
Is Miracle Grow?
No, it's not Miracle Grow.
So, yeah,
It's actually a lot more benign than Miracle. It's actually specifically developed for kids. So you just add
Oops.
delineate there's different formulas for different kinds of treatment. But it's a personal- Yeah, I like
Oh,
fertilizers, you know,
All right, there we go.
tend to be, they'll call them salt based, and they actually kill the microbial life in the soil. Actually, I do things to,
Sean, can you put the lights on?
I do things to actually bring microbial life
Have some
back to the
pictures.
soil. There's certain
turn
things
it
like
off for a second.
borax,
Oh, you're back.
There's a lot of different things that we do. Because what I'm trying to do really, in the cannabis industry, you have a lot of your indoor grow is it's hydroponic or very commercialized. I'm developing a system where I'm actually bringing microbial life back into our indoors, you know, where what we're ultimately going to be indoors.
let's I'm gonna stop you. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
Sure.
We have time limit and we want to get to the Walton project. So that was the beginning phase and these pictures just show the harvest time. This is inside that head house. That's what it looks like now. And that's what we're processing now to get out there. So all along this time, our plan has always been to build an indoor facility. We got the opportunity to get this conditional license for outdoor grow, and that's what we did. But we still have every desire and intention to build a 60,000 square foot indoor facility, you know, on the property in Walton that would encompass all of what we're doing. Of course, it's a more controlled environment to put out flower, premium pre-rolls, and Michael spoke to our commitment to genetics and developing strains from lamb-raised genetics and also preserving them in perpetuity. Some of our, you know, who's our audience? The retail operators. So those are those dispensaries. That's who we would be selling to directly. We are on Instagram now since we saw you last. We have a website. We are on Facebook and we have a PR campaign that's just starting now. All of that to educate the consumer. We're also doing a dog and pony show out there, doing webinars, seminars, and educational pieces. Some of that with the industry professionals is getting hooked into the PR person who's coming on board is going to hook us up into doing speaking engagement at industry, you know, industry conferences and things of that nature, podcasts and such. One of the big ways that we see us being able to give back to the community, as we already now have demonstrated in this last year, is by creating jobs. And so we've worked with the Delaware County Economic Development Department. We had some people on the Train to Work program. We've been working with the Department of Labor. They've been really helping us recruit. We've developed student internships, as I said, with SUNY Morrisville, SUNY Delhi, and Syracuse University. I have an excellent intern from there. We speak at the schools and we contribute to supporting them in their programs. The Department of Labor has this workforce development initiative, and they now have this cannabis workforce department. And so we've been working closely with the executive director, David Serrano, to develop more educational components and job creation. What we have learned and found is that people will travel to work in the cannabis industry in New York. And so in our recruitment, we've not only recruited from local participants, some of whom you might have recognized in the video, but also people have traveled and many are willing to relocate to come and work for us when we're a full-time operation. This last year, we've been seasonal. Once we're indoors, we'll have the opportunity just with hands-on plant touching folks and those who support that to employ 35 to 40 people. And we anticipate that we'll be bringing people into the Walton community and into the community surrounding.
A quick question, for spotless credentials required for the people you're hiring as well? Obviously, you folks have them, but
Because we're licensed. So we do a thorough background check. That being said, there's a huge push in the cannabis industry to support people who have been marginalized because of the cannabis industry and perhaps have had a negative impact, you know, by being arrested, by serving time. And so we would never discount somebody with that type of background specifically. But, you know, we walk into everything with all eyes wide open and, you know, we give everybody an opportunity.
jobs training standpoint, if that's something we have to consider, but thank you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then other community collaborations I spoke about, I think, yeah. One of the things, the Cannabis Workforce Initiative, actually after this, we're meeting with the director today. They are already doing a lot of educational webinars and seminars, but they want to focus on what they consider the underserved
areas, and they consider this to be one of them. And so what they'd like to do is have us be an arm of their educational initiatives and workforce initiatives and start to go on the, like I said, the dog and pony show, go out there and educate people in our communities locally on their behalf to help educate people about job opportunities and recruitment. So we're looking forward to that. I love speaking, if you haven't noticed. Environmental sustainability, I mentioned this is a big one for the state. So for the indoor facility, I'm going to let Michael speak, I guess, as fast as I do and briefly, just to speak to some of the things that we will do and incorporate into that building.
Okay, for one, I wish the gentleman from the co-op was here still because this would interest him. What we're going to do, New York, or the cannabis industry right now is consuming 1% of the national grid, and it's not even up and running in every state. So that needs to be mitigated in some way, shape, or form, and move into being sustainable. What I have researched highly is cogeneration. Basically, our facility will be producing 30% of our electric at 80% efficiency opposed to, so it's like a 50% efficiency bump over what comes off your transmission lines. And unfortunately, that does have to be done through non-sustainable, and that's one of the reasons we want to be in Walton, because it's the only area that has natural gas. So we're using natural gas to produce 30% of our electricity at a 50% more efficient rate than what we would get from line transmission. And what we do with that as well, and also we're using chillers, not just the cogen, we're using chillers for our HVAC and such. And there's a couple different things you use. Then use the heat from the chillers to heat the facility, which you usually don't have to because of the lighting. But we're going to minimize our lighting or our cost and our consumption for heat. And we capture the CO2 that comes off of these generators and chillers and put it into our flower room. Portion of it goes into the flower room, because when you're growing cannabis in the flower or marijuana in the indoors, you up the CO2 levels from 300 to 400 parts per million, which is what we're breathing right now, to around 1200 parts per million. So what we'll be doing, and that makes the plant flower better and produce a better flower. So we're taking what would be CO2, which would be part of our carbon footprint, and we're turning it into oxygen, because most of us know that when a plant consumes, it uses CO2, it produces oxygen. And what I found out recently as well is the CO2 that we won't use will be bottled and then sold to beverage producers or other industries that would be consumed, that actually purchase CO2 at this point in time. So what we don't actually utilize will be transformed in one shape or another into manufacturing on another level. I'm really excited about this because, again, we're wanting to be ahead of the curve, as Joanne was saying, like what we're doing here in Delhi right now. We're trying to set the gold standard and doing the same thing, and we're actually talking to the sustainability committee for canning as well to get other farmers on board with this. And this is for larger facilities because it's a bit of an investment, but it just makes dollars and cents because it will pay for itself in 3 years. Other things we're looking to do is to minimize our water usage by, and this is something we're just looking into. It's not a given. But I know Ed Snow really wants to do something with the runoff from the sewage treatment plant. And because there's no direct line to us to do that, I'm looking into buying the tanker trucks to be able to bring the water over, because we'll be using about 20,000 gallons a day. So bring the water over to the water treatment plant, and we'll utilize that in our facility instead of having to tap the water that's within Walton. And there's a lot of other things that are done from a sustainability part.
Odor mitigation, I think that might.
Yeah, odor mitigation, there's different ways of doing that. The most common way is using carbon filter scrubbers, which pretty much, eliminates any VOCs or eliminates the air or the odor. And, we're pretty much going to be, other than the building being there, people aren't going to know we're there.
Yeah, it's a self-contained, it has to be for the plant's sake. It has to be a self-contained environment. We're open.
To that other.
Yeah, we're open. We're at the Q&A piece.
Yeah, I'm Joe Seta, supervisor, town of Walton, and I've been
Great.
approached by a number of people, not a great deal of number of people, but enough to pique the interest of not only myself, but the rest of the town board in this endeavor.
Sure.
A lot of opposition to it. Personally, I'm opposed to it, but I think it would be beneficial that if you could come to one of our board meetings and do this presentation, because I've learned some stuff that I haven't learned or I didn't know before.
Sure.
And there's a lot of negativity toward these types of endeavors because of what they read happened in Colorado.
Mhm.
And so I just think the educational piece of this would go a long ways for particularly the
Yeah,
town of Walton, myself included, and the rest of the board.
yeah.
I do. I had a couple questions, but you have answered some of them.
Okay.
Odor control. One question I did have is why right in the village on the new IDA property and not in the existing property? But I think you've answered that because of the square footage. That property, the remaining parcel you have at the River Road.
Yeah, River Road, yeah,
It's not
it's
big enough.
1.9 acres, and that's also later on, was one of the reasons why I was hoping here. Tiberio's coming around, and so we've already kind of,
Well. Yes,
or maybe.
we've heard that for how many years?
I
now?
know, I
That's
know.
another story.
Yeah,
So I
but this
think it
time
would-
we really. need
I
it.
think it would be beneficial if you contacted me,
Sure.
we'll make a plan
Mhm.
to present a shortened version.
Yeah, I'm
of
sorry
this
about that.
To the town
Sure,
board,
absolutely.
and that would get out to the people, probably answer some more questions that I would have at the time. There is still, not that the town board can prevent this, but there is an element of letting the community know
Yeah,
what you're
absolutely.
doing. I just don't think there's been enough educational part of this,
Sure.
so.
Oh, we would love to.
False stigmas.
There is a lot, you know, of course, you know, Delaware County is a conservative area and this is a new thing.
Sure.
Yeah,
And we've done that in Delhi. We've invited, through the chamber, we've had like community farm tours. Even just to bring the community in to see who we are and what we do. But I'd be happy
yeah,
to come and start
there's
with
gonna
you
be a
there.
lot more questions
Yeah.
from the rest of our board on this, because like I said, including myself and the rest of our board, we've discussed this, and Glenn knows this as well, is, we're basically opposed to this.
Mhm.
But there is that element of the educational piece.
Yeah,
Sure.
and that's what we're all-
The question and the answer period would, not that anybody would change their opinion on it, but
Yeah.
there may be,
Sure.
People understand it, let them understand actually what the industry does, and what it is, what it's
Well,
about.
And what we haven't touched so much on is the economic development piece of it, so we can also expand on that, just give
Well,
you a portion of it.
one big thing is the number of jobs, because there was discussion, how many people do you hire to watch your corn grow, bud? How many people do you need to hire to watch marijuana grow?
So a
I-
lot.
Well, you don't like people
Yeah, yeah.
today now,
But
right?
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That was a piece that I didn't understand.
Sure.
The number of jobs available. One question I did bring up at the last board meeting is, most businesses are looking for employees. I mean, the county itself has 70 to 90 vacant positions.
Yeah,
So you're not gonna get them. Where are you gonna get them? But you did kind of touch up that you're gonna bring them from outside the area,
if need
which,
be,
what's that?
if need be, but.
Yeah, no, I
yeah,
get it, I get it. And more than likely, you're probably gonna have to.
Yeah, people are.
But,
not-
which we would welcome them
Right.
into the town, yes.
Right. That's part of our
Feeling in the village.
Yeah, yeah.
One other concern, we just built a behavioral health facility stone's throw from where you're gonna put this facility.
Mhm.
Is there an element concerning that facility with the new behavioral health facility? I don't know, maybe you can answer
I
that,
can
don't
s-
answer it now.
No, I can certainly speak to that.
But,
sure, yeah.
yeah, so I think the biggest thing, like I said, and I probably said this twice, you need to come to Walton and present this.
Sure.
And I will get in contact with me. I don't have a card on
That's
me.
fine.
Yeah,
We'll-
Joe, if
You'll
I
connect
can
us.
work with Joanne and.
Please,
and
yeah,
we'll
I
arrange a
think
meeting.
that's the
The right,
path,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So,
No, I appreciate that. Like I said,
yeah.
we love getting out there and speaking and educating, for
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And we want happy neighbors,
well,
Yeah, maybe it's through the pocketbook, I don't know.
I do have to tell you too, some of the people that live in that general area, Burton Street, St. John Street, Mead Street area,
Yeah,
have approached me on this because they just don't know.
sure,
And I don't know enough about it
Sure.
to,
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming and for being open to.
No,
to share.
I want to thank Glenn for inviting me,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
appreciate that. This was a good, kind of an eye opener.
Great.
I haven't changed my mind,
No,
believe
that's
me.
okay.
I'm still opposed to marijuana as a whole. That's just me.
Great.
Never smoked it, don't want to smoke it, but anyways, I think that would be a very good step, and I appreciate your
Yeah,
willingness
no,
to.
absolutely. I would love to.
Have you been to the village board?
Yes.
No. Have we been to the village board? No.
No.
No, we've met with some of the folks over there.
Pretty much.
We've not been to the.
With Ed Snow and his.
So
Yeah.
Glenn, I think this would be beneficial if,
This sounds like bigger than.
right, I think if we did something with the village board and the town board at a, like, not so much public hearing, but like a town board meeting.
Yeah.
At the fire station to do this presentation and open it up to the public, that might be the avenue. To get the most information out,
Sure.
so. We'll talk,
Yeah.
this is.
I just as a side note, and I'll be fast, I did a lot of work in our community, in the recovery community. Going into jails and developing, I was part of a nonprofit organization that I helped form and work with a local pastor in Delhi to develop a pathway to employment from incarceration. And so I'm very plugged into that piece of like the recovery community, the mental health community, coming as a nurse and all of that kind of stuff. I've invested a lot of my own personal time in that. And would welcome those conversations, you know, to a bit.
I think another element is the county just received opioid settlement money that I'm
Yeah,
on the committee to distribute them, so. A lot of people see that and now see marijuana and, it's like. Still the mentality in some people
Sure.
are,
It's
a
a gateway
gateway
thing.
drug, and why are you doing this and why are you doing that? And so
yeah.
I think the educational piece will be extremely
And I'll
beneficial.
plug in some of the education around how cannabis is actually helps people get off of opioids and how it's actually a transition. It's only a gateway to Doritos. But that's just my own little.
I don't know. I never used this. I don't know.
I'm a consumer myself, to be truthful with you. You
Yeah.
know, for me, this is all about health and education and an opportunity to serve.
However, on the one slide, there was the retail and
Yeah,
what I understood, maybe you can open up my eyes on this. You're not gonna have a window where people can
No.
go up and
We
buy
can't
a
by
joint,
law,
right?
we cannot.
Right, okay,
Yeah.
good. See, that's one of the misconceptions.
right.
We don't want people from Andy's coming over and buying marijuana
no.
in Walton. We don't want Andy.
Alright.
I'm kidding. But not.
Is there, just to further Joe's question, is there a possibility that could happen eventually, though?
No,
If the state changes its laws?
no, not,
You guys would.
we will never be able
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is an extremely good point to bring up.
Yeah.
Thank you for that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah,
During this,
I think it's brilliant on New York State.
what'd you
Park.
call it, Glenn, a roundhouse? Or-
Round-
Round
table.
Round table, yes, round table, yeah,
Yeah.
Okay,
okay, but I
thank
do
you so
have
much
to,
for
I do
being here.
have to run.
Appreciate it.
We did that on the solar project.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Question?
Yes, so
you wanna be
the moderator?
Anybody else?
I think that
I was kind of that and that one.
That's what we usually do to introduce new members to being on the board, is we have them moderate.
That was not a fun process.
Do you have any other questions for Michael and Joanne?
Oh, your guys are leaving too?
We could stay, but I just didn't want to.
Oh, no, I meant presentation. Okay, yeah, I know it all anyway, so it's fine, yeah.
No, I want to answer.
I just, the only question I had, and
Thanks,
Jim, I'll be
Joe.
quick,
Joe.
just from a product perspective, how wide is your scope of products? What,
Right now, we grew 5 mainstreams and then we piloted a couple of others. So maybe we have about 8 that go out, that might go out into the community, into the dispensaries. We're gonna be selling flour in jars. We're gonna be selling pre-rolls. So
Okay,
pre-rolled
okay.
joints
Yeah.
and And we may get into processing some
Okay.
some
That's it.
specialty items. like
The,
that.
The natural forms of it.
but that isn't a local sale per se. You're going out to the legal
Dispensaries.
entities that can dispense. Okay.
We had a new employee show up and said, can I buy a couple of buds off you? We're like, X nay, no way, and there's cameras on you. honey.
Yeah. Okay, and I think that was Joe's concern too. So you're not selling locally. It's through the legal dispensaries.
I'm not sure, I guess maybe some people know this, but they don't think. Marijuana was one of the biggest cash crops in Delaware County for years and years and years, so.
Well, that's hearsay.
It's here.
That's not to be valid, that's not validated.
The location of your farm, said it was on back.
No comment.
Or it's Blueville, yeah.
You-
Feel free to drive by, and you see them, stop by, or give a tour.
It's a beautiful area there. You did a nice job.
Oh, I'm going to just give a shout out to Delaware.
See you, bud.
It's more beautiful.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, bud.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to make a comment. I'm from the town of Water. I was the town supervisor prior. They've made a lot of comments that they don't have a clue what they're talking about. And I think going and talking is gonna be a good thing for it. Like he said, he learns himself because they're making assumptions that they're not even,
Right.
that have no basis for. And this huge group of people who are opposed to this, a phantom number. I mean, it's, I haven't seen any big outpour where people are saying, we don't want this here. There's
Right.
a small group that's saying, you know, this is gonna ruin our economy and blah, 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 and destroy us. And it was just the same type of group when the youth detention center was talked about that it was gonna destroy it. And we're in the slum, and it's the same group of type of people doing it. So I hope you don't take that into consideration at all.
No, I think it's all good, you know, I mean, we'd rather attack it from the front
Yep.
and not
Good.
attack it, but just get everybody sort of, you know, conversing.
Well, as Senator Overocker had said when he came to visit our farm, he said, I'm really, really glad that you came here, that I came here, because I was expecting to see a couple of hippies growing weed. Not people who can articulate and have business acumen. And that's right.
It's just a misunderstanding of
Yes.
what this business
Yes.
is and what it is not.
Right.
And
It's
it just needs, like you said, an educational.
And the tax ramifications, of what it's gonna do for the area as well. There's so much money.
We could speak to some of that. Yeah.
Okay.
So thank you, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Oh, yeah.
You just look at it, they're gonna pay salaries up there, 50 cent labor.
No,
Because the whole scale is much
Right.
greater, so
Yes.
you can pay a greater wage.
exactly, exactly.
And we're training people into a skill set that we can, monetize.
Are you currently meeting your employment needs right now?
We have, I mean, where we had problems was our initial, because it's a really seasonal part, where we have a big rush for planting, and we have a big rush for harvest. You know, so that's, but we did meet the
We
needs,
did meet our needs.
but that was a little,
It was the first year, and so now we know, so we're having our operations meeting next week, to start to plan ahead and know exactly how many full timers we need throughout the whole season. We're hoping to be able to transition into indoor soon enough that we can now just hire people full time,
Yeah.
you know, all year round.
And what was that number again? Once the new indoor facility's up and running full clip? You have 28, you had 28 this year.
Oh, how many employees?
How many
I think about-
additional?
I think about 40 to 45 all told.
Okay, so total,
Yeah,
so another 20 roughly,
yeah, but that would be full time.
and it's
year
28
round.
was the first time, they were about the time people that we had come through the door.
as needed, yeah. Very nice.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
You're more than welcome to stay if you want to listen to all this nonsense. Okay, let's start right in with the, I'd like a approval of the minutes from the January 20th meeting.
Still move.
Second,
Second.
any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Glenn, update on the Sewer Works Corporation?
Okay, so I did make a commitment that this meeting was not gonna go over, so I am gonna speak fast.
Over what?
Over our usual time. So are we gonna do financials first?
Oh, I missed them. Yeah, sorry. Um,
No, 1 o'clock. We're done at 1.
let me, I made a mistake. Let's back up and do the financial reports.
Okay, nothing new on the treasurer's report for either entity. Under our one savings account, just that the IRP 5, which we have $200,000 pledged towards matching our new loan with USDA. That is somewhere in the works. I spoke with Carly, our attorney, 2 weeks ago. And she said she had one brief intro email from USDA, but nothing yet. So that's why that's what that is dedicated for. Hopefully that'll be moving soon. I have nothing new to add under the LDC beside what's there. Going down the loan report, starting on the IDA first. Number 12, we've talked about this. It's actually 2 in the past, or 2 behind. They missed 1 in September, and then they missed 1 just more recently. So we'll be reaching out to them about that. Number 15, he does continue to make payments. Again, that's a balance. They have submitted an application under the rail program that will hopefully bring in some financing to help them get caught up. Number 17, 18, 19, I spoke with them today. There was a rumor that they were shut down. That's not true. They're not operating at a very high level, but they do have employees on site. They are filling orders. They are moving forward with that. I have a meeting scheduled with the owner and I guess she would be the financial manager on March 23rd. So it'll be right before our next meeting. So I'll have more information then. Number 21, they are making cash payments on a regular basis. So that balance, that's a past due balance that will probably never honestly be worked off, but it'll be carried until it's paid off. Number 25, I've spoken to him. Obviously, I need to speak to him again. And basically, when I did speak to him the first time, it was, okay, we're just gonna send one, get you all cut up, and then move forward. I just need to reach out again on that. On the LDC, number 11, that past due is a historic miss when we were transitioning from regular payments to a deferment and then back to regular payments. Again, we're carrying it there just to make sure we don't lose track of it and it will get made up.
Are they back open?
They are open.
Good. He's open, I think Tuesday through Saturday. I believe that's what it's scheduled, but it's open.
And we have been requested for a payoff figure, as was the Village of Sydney.
Oh, okay.
So it's my understanding there may be a new operator interested in purchasing.
Yeah, and I did discuss that with him, because he had somebody coming around the village handing out coupons. I'm in there and she was telling people she's a new owner.
Yes.
And when I spoke to him, that's not the case. She was a chef. So he is in the process of trying to sell it. Okay.
And that was what, 2-3 weeks ago?
About 3 weeks. ago.
Yeah. So, you know, positive-ish there. Number 13 is typical. It'll come in next week. As is number 43. Number 39. I haven't had a chance to get our attorney moving on this one. We've decided at the last meeting that we were gonna turn it over to her, right? Unless I'm missing something.
No, we did decide that.
Yes. Well, Sean looked at me like I might have.
No,
missed one. Okay, all right. Okay, so that's it. Unless there's any questions.
Just a quick question, because I don't know. Do we have a requirement that if someone's selling a business that has an obligation to us that they notify us or no? It may not be
Yes.
necessary. I don't know.
Well, yeah, for this one, we have first mortgage.
Okay.
So they can't sell it without satisfying
All
that,
right.
yeah. And that's typically what happens is we have the mortgage on a property and so they can't close without our approval.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there's no notification requirement that you could.
No,
butt up
that's-
against the day the transaction happens almost in. To some degree.
Yeah.
You
it-
can't
it-
sell it without paying it off and having liens released. So.
We learned about it at some point.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying you wouldn't learn about it. I just wondered if there was a
Yeah.
notification, so you. If
But
there's
that's not
anything
a
we
bad
needed to
thing
do
to-
up front, we could do it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but they normally contact us because they need a payoff.
Yeah. That's a good point.
yeah, but it's.
You would know what that
That's
way, yeah.
easy to clarify in our language and I'd have to. I'll add it if it's not there.
Okay.
Just
It may be there. I haven't read it that closely.
back on the IDA,
Yeah,
under number 15. A snarky thought for the guy who runs the place.
number 15 and snarky, okay, yeah.
To ask the widow to pay off all the debt since she claims she owns it.
Oh, so maybe we should
His
send her,
attorney should be pushing for her to pay it all off.
if it's
She
her.
wants to own it. It's a
And
tactic.
how is that snarky? I'm just kidding.
It probably is not. but-
Yeah. I'll talk to him about it, sounds
It's a
interesting.
Tactic to try and clear this
Yep.
up.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
The,
that, I kind of like that. Say, oh, it's our understanding that you are the owner of this business. You owe us this, please pay immediately.
Correct.
Okay. I kind of like that. Might help.
yep. Okay, can I have a motion to accept the financial report and to pay the bills?
Second.
All in favor? Opposed. Now we're down to Delhi Sewer Works Park.
Okay, yeah, so I did this, just FYI, you know, the IDA is the sole shareholder of the Sewer Works Corp. So I just wanted to put forward the financials for the Sewer Works Corp for the year that was in the folder. You know, for the meeting documents. Everything is moving forward fine, you know. I had mistakenly reported at the last meeting that in January we paid off the debt to the IDA. That wasn't until February. Okay, and so the balance sheet you see that shows it, that was only through the end of the year, so of course it was there. But I did misspeak at the last meeting. Tabitha and I had talked about it, but I hadn't given her the paperwork she needed to process the transfer, so it was my fault. So yeah, so I just wanted to provide those financial statements in case there was any questions about the operation or whatever. You know, we're actually operating pretty good. There's been a slight uptick in terms of the timeliness of the payments that we're receiving. So things are getting better, and then hopefully, you know, we'll be moving forward with that
And where
into
did-
a user agreement.
just a question on the income, where does that reside, or where does that go? Or does it just stay in,
So the income,
like the $11,000, it's not a lot of money, but.
yeah, so at the time there was that $11,000 there. We had like $8,000 worth of bills that were due but not yet paid.
Okay.
So it should be in a checking account. That's.
Yeah, so
It stays in a checking account.
Yeah, oh, okay, to answer your
That's all,
question
yeah.
specifically, yes, it
Okay, so it
stays in a
stays there.
specific checking account under the name of the Delhi Sewer Works Corporation.
Thank you.
Yep.
Do you need a motion to accept the financials of that?
I don't know whether it was FYI, or do you want to make it a requirement that they report to you, or?
So the legal structure is that it's not a part of the IDA or the.
It's a separate, it's a separate corporation. You just happen to be the shareholder.
So we should be
We
getting.
should be getting monthly.
Okay, so then, yeah,
We
we'll-
should be approving.
Okay,
I'll make the motion.
Second,
and we'll do this quarterly. There's really not much to look at monthly, unless you want it monthly. Doesn't matter.
Does
To me.
seem monthly.
Okay,
That's probably the right amount of due diligence.
okay.
okay, do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's opposed. Glenn, you want to talk about John Shepherd's or 9 Meredith? Excuse me.
Okay, so at the last meeting, we looked at and. So. We've been. Share, Scott, go get your own. Somebody like you and. I think there's two there.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Okay, so a version that we previously.
See, he was gonna put it in here.
Yeah. Yes, meeting docs, okay, so you can follow on. Okay, so the version that we approved, I believe called Concept C. Back in, at the last meeting, had the new garage building facing Orchard Street. That ran into a lot of, not a lot. 3 people were against it, which is enough to change any type of plans in this county.
Yeah.
And so from that, we decided to entirely rework the project. And so instead of building a garage on the separate parcel, what the new thinking is that it will be an extension of the existing garage. The vacant parcel will become all parking.
The square footage of the garage, proposed garage goes down
Proposed- So
roughly.
he is adding 30 by 60 or 40 by 60, I forget.
2,400 square feet. I don't remember what it was.
40 by
last time.
60.
30 by 80? No, 40 by 60. Yes, it's 40 by 60.
Oh, okay, so it's still the,
Yeah.
4 bays.
Yeah, so it's 40 feet deep, 60 feet long.
And how many parking spots did this add? Because we were parking spots.
Yeah, so it's
where the
gonna
building
eliminate,
is.
and this will meet code. This will meet code, because you need, so it says on here, so there's 24 required, because you need 3 spots per lift. So you need 24, and this provides 44 parking spots between the 2 locations.
Which is how many more than we had on version C last month? Your
Version, oh, this was version C, but now that I'm looking at it with my glasses, I see it's G. So version C had all of the existing parking on the existing lot.
Yeah.
Which is let's say 12. And it added 22 new spots. So there is actually a little bit more parking associated with
Right,
this than there was there before. Yeah.
Okay.
It does, so, if this is accepted. One of the things that we would be doing, is prior to selling, we would be doing a boundary line adjustment to make sure that, the proposed garage, if you see the corner there where it says proposed garage, I don't know, about a fifth of it extends beyond the existing property boundary. What we would do is do a slight boundary line adjustment to move that property line over. And then,
And make it enough so that it meets the setback.
and make it enough
Not
that it
just so
needs
it
to
gets
sit.
past the edge of the building, but.
Right.
so that it
We'll
meets
do
the
it.
setback.
As long, well, to the extent it remains a viable parcel.
Yeah.
Because the reason why we want to do it that way is the whole financing structure of this project from the beginning entailed a leasehold property and then a for sale property. And in order to maintain the benefits to everybody involved of that financing structure, that's why we would do the boundary line adjustment.
Okay. And Glenn, we've been working with the village planning board on this. And
Yes, that was where the opposition to the first plan came from. Yeah, there were 2 members of the ZBA. The zoning board of appeals, because there was setback variances that we would need. And they came and said their opposition to it, and some of the other town board members and the code enforcement officer at the meeting unfortunately not prior to the meeting, disclosed that they weren't happy with it either. So. Yeah, so we decided to make some changes.
And this doesn't put any hindrances on his ability to do what he wants.
No, and actually to a certain extent, my concern is aesthetically, I don't like it as much. But from his standpoint, it avoids new sewer and water hookups. It avoids a new utility hookup. And now his ability to have people or tools transfer from one garage to another is greatly facilitated.
And you've added trees, so it's gonna be far better than what it is right now.
Yes, and paved parking.
Paved park.
Yep.
No permeability issues there? I mean, no one brought up permeability or?
No, it's
Permeable.
small enough. I mean, he will obviously have to install stormwater containment, so it will go into manhole covers, but there are existing one. There's a thought that there's an existing one up in the front corner, which is a no man's land zone anyways, because of site distances up on the corner of Orchard Street and Meredith
It's in the
Street.
drawing.
So, yeah. So they'll be able to convey the stormwater over to there.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah. So just, as the IDA had the right to approve a site plan and it was revised, I just wanted to bring it back and make sure you guys were okay with it. As currently designed. But maybe yet be amended again, who knows?
I'm fine with it. Okay, you need any other questions on that? Okay, number 8, Sydney Industrial Park.
Okay, so we've been working with a company for that. I had thought there was a chance that we would be reviewing information being provided from them. And they weren't ready with it yet, so it'll be the next meeting. Basically, we've asked them for a site plan, financials, everything we would normally ask for a sale of property or a loan. In terms of financing and things of that nature and job creation and so not ready for this meeting, hopefully for next.
Good.
They're excited to do it. I had a call with the principal this morning. Need to get them some zoning information.
Yes.
So their main concern at the moment is just how big of a facility can they put on the property, so. 40,000 square feet.
Yeah.
It'll fit really well if they can buy the water bottle.
Yes, if anybody could, that would be really nice. Yeah.
So where are they looking at doing? They're looking at the water bottle plant?
No, right next door. So 4 Winkler Road. We own right now, it's where the trees are. It has grown up since we acquired it as part of the Casella waste deal. Yeah.
Between the storage units
And
water bottle in that spot.
Yeah.
It's deep, buildable all the way to the back.
Yeah, I mean, we just easily laid out 35,000 square feet and I think there's probably more you could push too, so, yeah.
Good.
So, all right, so there'll be more coming on that. Okay.
Tiberio.
Custom Meats, as Joe mentioned, we've been working on that since 2017, so, it's kind of crying wolf, but this time, I mean it. We've had a great meeting with MBT Bank, who would be the lead lender along with Pursuit providing SBA guarantees. And they're very interested in the project. Prices seem reasonable. Scott was asked to review some financials as a precursor to submitting to them. I don't know, you did it as a board member, and so he's had a chance to do that. I did put the business plan up on there. Did I put the financials up? Maybe I didn't yet.
Didn't see them.
And I put up a copy of what they're planning to do on the site. So I did put up a site plan, I believe, map up there. at this point in time, I will be talking with Adam Tiberio next week. Probably for our March meeting, he will be submitting a pilot application to us. And at that point, we'll really start getting into it.
And he wanted some bridge financing
Yes,
from us before he receives, I forget the acronym for the grant.
yeah, yep. So he received a $320,000 grant through Empire State Development. In support of the project, obviously, that is a reimbursement-based grant. As part of the proposed financing, he would most likely be coming to us for a loan to upfront that money, which we do have available in our ag lending fund. So,
We just can't let April get her hands on that before we get our hands on it.
oh, absolutely, yes, yeah, and she knows that is no touchy for her, yeah.
Okay.
She likes me, I don't know, I paid for lunch, so well, actually, you guys paid for lunch, thank you. NBT and Tiberio Custom Meats and Pursuit really appreciated that. But yeah, so they, things are moving and I'm convinced that's not. And so they will be locating in the Walton Industrial
Yes.
Park on a 2-acre piece
I
of
saw that,
property.
yep.
We'll be selling.
Question for you though, only because I had 2 years at Previmi Veal before I went on with my career. Processing of blood or handling of blood. That
JC
was a huge
rendering.
issue. Okay, so they'll just use JC rendering.
Yep,
Okay, just
Yep.
curious.
Yeah.
It's back in the days of
yeah,
flooding the Delaware.
wash down stuff and everything will go to the wastewater treatment plant, but
Okay.
yeah, everything else will go to a
Okay,
regular.
just wanted to make sure I didn't see it in there, so I just wanted,
Yeah,
nasty business.
And we have to have, now with the new state regs, they have to have access to a wastewater treatment plant.
Okay,
yeah, no more feeding fish.
no more Delaware dumps?
No.
Nope.
Okay, so Catskill Regional Harvest. So it, I don't like to admit it, but Scott was right, I was wrong. And our equipment sales have fallen about, half of what I was hoping for. I think that might have even been where Scott said it would probably come out. So this is an update of.
I think it's more than what I said, but
Yeah, I was thinking we were going to get 30 cents on the dollar.
So this is about where we came out. And there's still one pending purchase and there's still some more stuff that hasn't been claimed, right?
There is some stuff that hasn't been claimed. There's also, I didn't include, I wasn't sure how much, like the picnic tables and all that.
Oh, yes, that's another Amy Crawford.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another one. It wasn't a ton because it was only like 2 picnic tables and some wine casks, so. Yeah.
It's $100 each, there's still a couple $100 more.
Yeah, so yeah, so there's still some stuff. This is just where we're at now. But we're very close to nearing the end. And then, one thing
So now you know why bankers hate to repossess stuff, because it sucks up a tremendous amount of time.
Right. Yeah.
And you never get it back.
Well, I did find a way to have it take up a lot less of my time, and that was by having Sean.
There's still a cost. And there's also the deferred cost, in not working on something that's gonna make them more.
Yes,
Than what we should have been.
so, yeah,
So there's a potential write-off there
oh, yes.
when we get to that point.
Well, so our next step,
42,000.
Well, maybe
on the books.
this is like buying the dealer taking back a car, and it's what you take it back at, and then when you sell that, where are you in the net? If it
net, I think will be okay. Net,
No
I-
write-off, zero write-off.
net, I believe you will still make a 0 write-off.
What does the banker say?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think so.
all right, good.
Yeah. So our next
We
step,
boil the loss into the real estate and the sale price, and so in
Fair
the
enough.
end, when the math's all completed, I think it'll be a break.
I
That's
just,
great.
Yeah.
It's great.
So that is our next step is in terms of going out for an RFP for the real estate.
And Bud wanted me to say that he got contacted by a operator of a property that is interested in this, so catch up with him on who it is.
Okay.
Cool.
Yep, we've had a handful of people reach out to us. I did a tour, you did a tour, right? Yeah, I did 2 tours. I think one is a tire kicker. Sean did a tour. And I forget who we can't say anyways. But so basically our next step would be to go out with a RFP, for proposals on it. We've got a sales price in mind, that would achieve our net. And, it's been floated out there and nobody balked at it as being reasonable. If anything, it might be a little bit low. So I will develop a RFP. I said I would try to do it for this meeting. I didn't get a chance to. It's very basic, other than just what are some of the criteria other than bid price that the board would be looking at, because I would want to disclose that in there. I mean, first of all, I'm assuming we're going to want, business plan, financials, tax returns, typical as we would with a loan.
How it
And
benefits the mission of the IDA and the county.
yeah, so other criteria.
Already be part of that business plan, right?
So that business from New Jersey.
Yeah, but so this is what we're weighing it on. So if someone bids, 500,000 and someone bids 499. But we like 499 better. We need that just, why are we picking?
So those
the
are,
lower
you're
one?
looking for the
So it's
deciding factors. Close-
non-monetary one.
That's it.
Strategically, do you say, the IDA is looking for this price? There will be multiple bids, make it your best offer.
Yes.
And maybe we get the price.
Oh, yeah, no, I would put it out as this is the floor price.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
And then the offer should go up from there. And then in terms of what we're looking at, like you said, obviously jobs.
Yep.
Agriculture.
Yep.
Anything else, or what else? And what types of benefits to the community would you be seeking? Sorry to throw this on you.
Job creation.
No,
That's about it, right? Investment. I mean,
That's tough to mandate.
no, but it would be a judging criteria.
Number of jobs.
Yeah.
He did that investment, sure, because maybe they have a good idea, and there's not a big
This
cost.
doesn't require much. Yeah. Okay.
So we don't want to be making decisions like that.
Mhm.
Growth plans, maybe, if all goes well. You're gonna build onto it, double the size.
Financial.
Quick question to the banker.
Yes, please.
Question to the banker. What is the appetite for the local banks to finance such a property for someone buying it?
Yeah, it's okay.
What's the LTV?
80.
Okay, so if they're coming in with 20, then you guys will do 80?
Yep.
Mhm. Okay. All right. Just curious, just to put it out there. I didn't know whether they were coming in with their own financing, whether the local market, the local bankers are financing these properties, these businesses. So
Well, I thought that would be, sorry, Fleur, that would be a factor that I would think we would evaluate on is if someone has all the financing in place. All other things being considered, maybe they're a more attractive project than someone who's asking us to hold paper or to.
Correct. Correct.
So that's what
I just wanted to make sure that there was an appetite locally from the local banks to finance this property. That's the only question that I have. There's some properties that some local lenders will not finance.
Yeah.
So this
At the
property
price
is
we're
one they would.
asking, I think it will be okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Has there been some businesses that are interested or people that are interested?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah.
At that price, or you don't?
No one's balked.
Good.
No one said, oh, you're out of your mind.
And that's the floor price.
Yes, that would be the floor, yes, and I would make sure that's clearly worded that, you know. Yeah,
There's also not a whole heck of a lot available that size. For anything.
And that's a very high quality building,
yes.
the way it's constructed.
And there's.
You can't match, you can't match that building.
That's right, because you have always.
Let me think for a minute. No.
You could process a lot of sap out of there.
I need to. figure out how to do that.
The cost. Okay, all right, so that's enough on that one then. So that's where we stand with Catskill Regional Harvest.
Good.
Good news, really.
Yes, yeah. Climate Act impact on Blue Stone. Well, all right, we're technically late, so I apologize for that. So, as part of the New York State Climate Act, any agency that has to give an approval, whether it be a permit or a license or something of that nature, they have to give approval. They have to evaluate it upon the extent to which it impacts the state's ability to meet their greenhouse gas reductions that are contained within the Climate Act. And so the Bluestone Association reached out, well, we were down there closing a loan that we had approved last month. And it had just popped up that morning. So the Bluestone Association received a heads up from DEC that, hey, this is coming down the pike. Anytime that you apply for a quarry permit or need to modify your permit or need to extend your permit, you are going to have a study commission that determines what your greenhouse gas emissions are for your process of quarrying. And, you know, so that would include the diesel fumes that come off of your loader or your hammers or the lighting that you use to light up there and the trucking that you use to take it from your quarry to somewhere else and any reclamation that you do and things of that nature. And the concern is twofold. Obviously, that's going to be a minimum, you know, 5-figure study every single time you want to get a permit, modify it or extend it, which happens fairly frequently. And in addition to that is going to be the time delays is, you know, it already takes a long time to get a permit and to modify a permit. And what is this going to do? And ultimately, in my opinion, what it's going to do is that some of our Bluestone processors will be absolutely fine, but there will be no more New York State quarries. All the quarries will just move over the border into Pennsylvania, and that's where all the rock will come from.
Is that the same with gravel mines too?
Yes, yes. Gravel mines, cement, anything like that, you know, so even worse, think of blacktop. You know, what are the emissions from stuff like that? So all these types of things.
So just curious, so they have to report on it, but they don't have to have a plan how to reduce it?
No, then the state will have to evaluate it and be like, oh, okay, so you know, you're gonna do this. Oh, sorry, the third fear is what comes at you have to change it.
Yeah.
Well, how do you run a loader less? How do you run a rock hammer less? You don't. So now you need to mitigate it. And what's the best way to mitigate it? Pay a fine. Well,
Or pay.
clone, yes,
Close
close
is
is
the
the way. The other way is to pay a fine so that they can then support some other type of greenhouse gas reduction project somewhere else.
And what this is gonna do is take all the independents and make them the bigger corporation.
Right.
But even the bigger corporations won't do this.
Right, because
Anybody who's marginal is.
Have to put up
Yeah.
solar panels.
Well, honestly, some of the independent guys may be okay, because what are their admissions? A truck. You know, they do everything by hand with hand.
And they
saws
do
and
everything
stuff.
under the radar now.
Well, that's
anyway.
true. They would be getting permits anyways. So,
It's just stone laying on the ground. We got this.
That's exactly correct.
They're probably gonna make you use electric equipment.
Yeah, that could be.
3 miles of.
Yeah.
You gotta run your generator,
Which takes diesel.
Yeah. So, so where we are with that, it's a big concern. There was a Bluestone Association meeting last week. No, there was a Bluestone Association meeting this week. George Sanford and I will get back together next week.
Is that a New York association or is that?
Yeah. It's
Okay,
New
so
York.
all New York, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So it's all New York State, which is basically Delaware and Broome counties, you know. There's a little bit further out in Tompkins. Is that the next one? But mostly it's like 85% is Delaware and Broome, a handful in Sullivan and some out west. But yeah, so then what we'll do from there is we're gonna reach out to our congressional reps as well as state reps, and all with the intention of asking for a meeting with DEC to help them understand why you know, this should be treated differently and why it's or at least help them understand the issues that they're going to create and see if we can find some type of resolution to the issue.
We might as well invite the gravel industry in too, because that's gonna.
Well, the Bluestone industry likes to keep a little bit of separation because they are so small in terms of footprint and impact. And whereas some of these large gravel operations can be considerable, especially if you get into cement type things. And they don't like to be, they like to portray themselves as quarrying, not mining. So it's just the way they've always set themselves up.
You know, it'd be one thing if the state was saying, okay, set a baseline. And now let's work together to, how do we make it more efficient per se?
Right.
But that's not how the state's operating right now.
No. Yeah, and the state is under pressure to get these guidelines, get these regulations out there and in place as soon as possible, so. Yeah. So, an FYI on that, I'm sure there'll be more to come.
That could destroy another industry.
Okay, any other old or new business?
I just have one quick thing, and this would apply to both entities, is that with Evans leaving, we have lost a person with the authority to sign checks, and we would like to have Sean appointed to have checks, co-signing ability on checks. So second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
I don't know, did Tab and I even mention that to you? No. I didn't. Congratulations, and another one. He also just recently was appointed to the Southern Tier 8 board and also to the CDO Workforce Investment Board. I told you.
CDO, all right.
Oh, yes, and you're Southern Tier 8 also, yes.
Surprise.
Okay, one thing I want to bring up on under new business is that Mark Molinaro kind of touched on this, but there's starting to be a lot of press being printed right now about IDAs and pilot agreements. And it's all negative stuff. It's coming largely out of either Orange County or the Buffalo area. So I've been keeping track of some of these newspaper articles, and I'm going to start circulating them to everybody, just as a heads up. So
yeah, there was a great one out today where somebody from Albany, the Albany City Treasurer, who was also on the IDA City of Albany IDA board, fought back and said how great they are for the school district, how much extra money they have actually brought in.
that's the first positive one.
Yes, it's the first time anybody's defended.
And you've got this Senator Skofus down in Orange County that's really making a fuss. And Orange County IDA was the one that had all the indictments of the board members for some shenanigans that was going on.
Right.
And
So-
that, I've always said, that's why we need to show the benefits when we do a pilot program, the benefits to everybody.
doing it.
I agree.
Counter at this baloney.
So I think it's something that we just need to be on top of.
Yeah,
What is
so
the alternative?
The problem is the way the state forces you to report pilot exemptions. Is so there's a calculation in there that almost double counts the benefit. It double counts the exemption that they receive and doesn't allow you to subtract the pilot payments that they make. So let's say, you know, a company, forget the fact that you're phasing into assessment over time. But let's say a company made $5 million of pilot payments. Well, that would be crazy high for us area. Let's be realistic. Someone made $10,000 of pilot payments, and normally their taxes would have been $12,000. They count that exemption and they print it as a $12,000 exemption. They don't count that they paid $10,000, and they don't count that before it was producing $10 worth of income per year. And so that's how all of this has started, you know, and nobody's ever defended themselves, and the state just picks at it, you know, whatever. So
Yeah, I mean,
we can't have milk in schools, but anyway, that's a different topic.
But I mean, that's a
Slightly.
sports field. What would we have done without that first pilot?
Right.
We,
And how much have you added in tax?
they,
Right, but how? Yes.
not we anymore.
You corrected that quick.
They increased assessment, they increased jobs. they
Yeah,
increased,
absolutely. Yeah.
You know, right.
And yeah, there's some that go bad, granted, but I'm not sure how many of them not made the grade here.
No, we've never had one that went bad that didn't meet our job creation.
So I sent that article to everybody yesterday about funding. And I didn't realize how much New York State had given to Micron Industries for their place up in Syracuse. The article kind of said New York State led the nation in giving away that money. So whether they like IDAs or not, the state's doing this exact same thing at the state level that they're criticizing the local.
At a much higher level.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Look at the Buffalo Bills Stadium.
You're right. Now, the good point in that article was that businesses go pretty much where they intend to go with or without the money. So we still have great opportunity here based on how it looks, how pretty it is, the rural life. Joanne and Michael are testament to coming to Delhi because they liked Delhi and Delaware County. Let's keep pushing for this stuff.
That's right.
And know that we don't have to give away the last penny to get somebody here. They're probably coming anyway. But I still like pilots.
Right.
Well, if you're homegrown and you're starting out, I mean, it's a little different scenario than someone who's maybe already on the way. But
Is
it's
it
a tool
possible-
we need.
Yes.
Is it possible to do like a video testimony of a company that, you know, got a pilot where that, you know, parcel, what that parcel was generating in terms of property taxes and what they paid into, like, kind of educational piece so that people see that, hey, we're not, you know, not generating revenue for that municipality. We're just inviting companies, and because we're, you know, business friendly, this company has been able to now scale the business and add X amount of jobs to, you know, to the community. Is there a way to create such a video? Because we have enough success.
Definitely, we
That's a really
can
good
create a
idea.
piece.
Particularly if you get an intern this summer from the college.
Yeah.
To have them do that for the pilot.
I like the way you just worded that. Thank you.
We got one right in the corner.
Intern, absolutely intern.
This for you guys.
That's what she does.
So that we have the data to back up our talking points when we want to do this.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's,
That's a good idea.
all right.
Then under old business, I was
Only
able
once a year for me, guys. You got my only good idea for the year. I'm done.
to close on the Kmart Plaza there.
Well, they're still in their discovery phase of the sales.
And that's still the Aldi,
The developer there, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
so it's not off the table.
It's not off the table yet.
They had like 6 months to do their due diligence. It was a long period.
Well, yes, but they had they had two 90-day periods, but before that even kicks in. One of the things was doing away with the shared maintenance agreement of the property. Because the owner of that building, however it was divvied up, was saddled with the sole responsibility for shared maintenance requirements. So it's to the extent, once they are able to get that taken care of, agreed to by all the parties, then they get into their planning board due diligence and stuff like that.
Your thought was they were also trying to leverage the old Grand Union building.
Yes.
So they put the two of them together.
Yes, that's my impression.
And that's still part of the,
Yeah, so let's see. It's probably the end of January. Might have even been the middle of January, my last communication with them. Yeah, but yeah, as far as they're concerned, they're still working on it. Yeah.
the other question I have with the new company that you're looking at, building a facility, are we doing a pilot program for them?
We haven't offered it yet. Basically, we're just seeking them to, yeah, we're asking them to supply us with the information. We haven't mentioned anything like that.
Okay.
We haven't mentioned any terms of financing. It's just, are you interested in the property? Here's what we'd like you to submit. Yeah.
All right, any other old or new business?
Just what, just going back to Delhi Sewer Works for a second, are there any surprises that we need to know of? Anything happening infrastructure wise? I know at one point we talked about potential capacity issues, anything down the road?
Okay, so a couple things with that. So first, we have the pipeline itself, which could be upgraded or could be redone. Working with, so I have to, once we get past this rail grant stuff, I have to engage with the two industries on nailing down the use agreement and then the project agreement for moving forward with the new pipeline. You know, we did get a grant for $410,000 to support that. We're intending to move forward with that. So that's one side of it. The other side is the IDA did receive $45,000 from the county from their ARPA funds in order to do a study of the Delhi wastewater treatment plant to determine their needs for being able to handle normal growth of the village as well as what the industries are requesting. I touch base, so our prime engineer on that is Lamont Engineering, Mike Harrington. I spoke to Mike early last week about it. And he's like, we're still in the information gathering stage and we're gonna start setting up meetings. So it's in the work. Yeah.
I was just curious.
Yeah,
I
so,
know we talked about it before. I didn't know what-
yeah, no, I mean, ultimately, at some point, the pipeline does need to be replaced. Ultimately, at some point, the village needs to do something. But that is a little bit, what is required? Is it $500,000? Is it 60 million? Depends on probably.
In a worst case scenario, if the pipeline falls apart and we have a spill of some product, who is responsible for that?
The Delhi Sewer Works Corporation.
It is.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
We have the appropriate coverage order.
Yep.
That entity has the appropriate.
Yes, yep, we do have.
Just a question.
Insurance on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, anything else? Then I have a motion to adjourn. And I'll open the LDC meeting. And we only got a couple things here to do. I'd like approval of the minutes from January 20. Second, all in favor? Approval of the financials, which we looked at. And a second, all in favor? Glenn, you want to talk about
Yeah, like,
Sean? or-
So we have 22 applications under the COVID rail grant. About 11 of them, half of them have been pretty thoroughly reviewed, those being Sean's half. And then the other 11 need to be reviewed ASAP. And so.
By someone else.
Yeah, well, we did mention maybe Sean picking up another half of the half. So
Thanks for saving your cost.
so hopefully we will be looking to make decisions on that within the next, we hopefully within the next week-ish, we will be getting the state's blessing, at least on the first round of projects, so we can start making some
Okay.
things.
How many dollars do we have in that program?
941,000.
How much money are you looking to commit to? Have you committed to?
We haven't committed to any, but we're just the first blush through it. We are gonna have a second round of funding.
So we don't have those $900 on our balance sheet right now.
No, because we don't, this will be a kind of like our micro enterprise grant programs. So as we approve a project, we will enter into an agreement with them. The state approves it. And let's say, so it's a COVID loss. So COVID loss, and let's make it easy. They're saying they're using this new money to pay for their electric bills during that period of time. They give us those X number of months of electric bills. We send it up with a request for payment up to the state. Then the state gives us the money and then we give them the money. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's a convoluted process.
So you won't be carrying anything.
No, we won't have anything on our books. Yeah, it comes in and out and it can't be in our account for more than 5 days.
Yeah.
So,
Tight.
yes, it makes it a very tight window.
Kathy's controlling the purse.
Yes. Yeah,
Okay, any other older new business for the LDC?
We had talked about the Franklin sewer.
yes.
project. Anything changed on that?
Nope, so we did submit our Restore New York application. I have no idea what the time frame on hearing about that is. Also, there is a property owner who was potentially going to be a host of the system. I'm in intermediate contact with her. She's not a full-time upstate resident. And I just need to reach back out to her. But yeah, nothing's set yet.
Right.
Yeah.
In process.
Yes, still in process.
Okay, and anything else? All right, we have to go into a quick executive session to talk about a personnel issue. And I'm not sure whether to adjourn the meeting and how we're gonna do it, how we should do this. Lillian has to go.
Lillian and Sean
And you.
and me.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, you're probably gonna have to do an executive session.
Yeah, go and do
Okay,
executive session.
all right. I have a motion for executive session, please.
Second.
Second, okay.
Was Sean?
Huh?
You're recording.
So. Okay, we're back live and what we discussed in executive session, I'd like a motion to increase the bonus arrangement as we discussed in our previous meeting, Glenn. And we're going to adjust the monthly stipend up a bit as well.
Oh,
And there's
So-
3 items we discussed in
Yep.
executives.
And the third item was that, Yeah.
All 3.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Well, thank you.
What you're doing.
Yeah.
And so
No, I
now
appreciate
we
it.
need a motion
fighting
to
a good
adjourn the
fight.
whole-
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So moved.
At lunchtime.
Keep fighting.
Thank you, everybody. I know this went long, but
Yes.
It was worth it.
So we
Have a good one, guys.
yeah.